This little featherweight was built in 1941, and it's fantastic. It'll do just about anything. Granted, it only sews forward. Well, it will sew backward, but I don't like to sew backward on it because, see this little lever? This sets the stitch length. All right, so if you want to sew backward, you have to go up like that and then down again. I don't like to do that. So what I do when I need to back tack, which one should do when one starts a seam, is I sew forward, lift the machine and the needle, move the fabric forward, and then put the needle down and then the presser foot down and sew over those couple of stitches. That's how the industry used to do it. They go zoom, zoom, like that. I never was able to do it as fast as they did it, but I did learn the technique, and it does work. All right, this little machine comes with a straight stitch foot, and there are a lot of attachments you can get. Now I know what you're thinking, it doesn't take snap-ons, but yes it does, because if you buy an adapter, and here's one here that I have, you can put that on the machine and then you can use all your snap-on feet. I now have the snap-on attachment here, the adapter. And I put this on the machine. It's just the same as if you were to put this presser foot on. That's all you have to do is just screw this on. And now you'll see that here's a little zipper foot. This is the zipper foot that I prefer. And this is a baby lock zipper foot. It's narrower. And this is the one that I find works the best when I'm setting zippers. So now I want to put this little snap-on zipper foot on my Singer sewing machine. There we go. Now, the problem is I can't really use this foot on this machine, and the reason I can't is because, as you see, the needle doesn't move right or left. So I'm going to take this off. I have another foot that does work, and this is an adjustable zipper foot. And this zipper foot is low shank, and this machines today are all made low shank. It used to be they had high shank, medium shank, low shank. So if you've got one of those older machines, you can have a problem getting the feet if you need different feet. But you know, look around, all kinds of stuff is out there on the net. So there's no reason to give up. All right, now I'm going to put this one on. I'm going to take this adapter off first of all, off it comes. And all these low shank feet will fit on a little featherweight machine. If you think I love this machine, you're right. I can't take my 260 into class. I've got to have portable machines, and there's no way I could carry that in. All right, so now this is attached good and tight. And now, as you can see, down comes the needle. And if the foot is to the right of the needle, as it is here, that's set for zippers. But if I move it, and you can see I can move the foot over, bring the needle down so we see if it makes over far enough. Come on, go. There we go. Always want to test these things before you start sewing because you don't want to break any needles. They're expensive. Oh, and that's another thing about needles you need to know. There is information out there that says you should change your needle every time you start sewing another garment. It's just nonsense. You don't need to change your needle unless it's broken. Now, a broken needle doesn't necessarily mean that the needle is broken in half. There can be a burr on the edge of the needle. And you know if there's a burr on the edge of the needle because when you go to sew, it goes clunk, 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 clunk. And that means you need to change your needle. And when that happens, you need to get rid of it. But in the meantime, don't get rid of your needles just because you just finished a garment and now you think you have to put another needle in. That's just plain nonsense, okay? This machine threads right to left. It goes in this side and comes out this side, which is very unusual. It's the only machine I know that threads that way. There may be others, but I don't know about them, all right? All right, anything that threads right to left or left to right has a side load. That's where the bobbin is. It goes in the side. And here's a little bobbin. Bobbins are different from one machine to another. And this little bobbin is really thin. You would think that this bobbin doesn't hold much thread, but it's surprising when you sew on this machine how much thread there really is on it. I'm now going to put the bobbin into the bobbin case. All right, so I put it in like this, and I know that the thread comes over this way, which is usually the way with all bobbins. And I'm going to bring it down this little groove. I put my glasses on so I can see better. Bring it down in here. And then it gets into this little groove right there. All right, and when you've got it right, when you hold the bobbin up like this, it shouldn't fall out. You see? It's in tight. All right, and if you go like this, it should come down just a little bit, and that means the tension is right. Now, a lot of people don't know it, but there is a tension on the bobbin case, and of course we all know about the tension here. So these are two tensions that are controlling the underlying thread and the top thread as it's sewn together. If you find on the top layer that your thread is loose, it's this tension that needs to be fixed. And be very careful about fixing that because these screws are tricky. So it's better to work with this and see if you can't fix it. Maybe you make the stitch length a little longer, a little shorter, and see if you can fix it that way instead of fooling with this. But if you're really stuck, this is what you fix. If the thread is loose on the bottom, you fix this tension. So the top tension for the bottom layer, bottom thread, and the bottom tension for the top thread. That's the way it is. It doesn't make any sense, but that's the way it is. All right, so now I'm going to hold this like this, and if I hold this like this, you can see it doesn't fall out. That's true of all bobbins. I'm going to put the thread back over my hand so it doesn't get caught in the race. And of course, this is the race right here, and it's called a race for good reason. It races around, right? And we're going to put it in, and you'll hear a little click when it goes in. See, it just snaps in. There we go. And there it is. And now what I need to do is put a spool of thread here and wind it through and bring the thread up before I sew. Okay? And that's how this machine works. It's true that the higher end the garment, usually the less equipment needed to make it. You really don't need a lot of bells and whistles. You need a machine that gives you a beautiful straight stitch, and that's just what this little machine does. And because it, of course, has a plate that has just a tiny hole, you never have to worry about anything getting jammed in the race. Okay? Notice that I do have gauges that I put on the machine. It's very easy to do it. All you need is just some masking tape or drafting tape, and you measure it out with your ruler from the point of the needle like I'm doing right now. And okay, so for instance, that's the 1/2 inch gauge. As you can see, you need to have one of these rulers. These rulers are essential. I have them all over the place. They're really wonderful. This is what the industry uses when they measure. They use this ruler, and it's just really great. Everything in the industry, the math is all very easy to use. Of course, you're using fractions. It starts with 1 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, 1/16 inch, 1/32 of an inch, and that's it. There's nothing complicated about the math, but you do have to use it if you want your garments to fit you. And here I have my shears, and people just are horrified. They look at these things and think, oh my goodness, how does she ever use them? But when I cut right to left, and I slide them on the table. I don't have a lot of strength, and I never did. So it's not as if so you have to be real strong to use these shears, because you slide them along the table. And just like a great big truck going down the road, you can't stop it once it gets going because its own weight propels it forward. And would you believe I even use these shears to cut open buttonholes? I do very close work with these shears often. They're invaluable. They're expensive, but they're well worth the money. The Featherweight comes in a little black box like you see here. And in the top of the box is another box, of course, where you put the presser feet and some threads and needles, whatever you want to take with you when you go somewhere with the machine. And this little hole here is where the machine can stick up in here so that it all fits in the box. It's all very compact. Nobody is manufacturing these machines anymore, but they are so well made that they're out there on the market. You need a manual for your sewing machine. I don't care how new or how old it is, you need a manual. And this I found on the net. Believe it, there are manuals out there for machines made in the 1940s, and my machine was made in 1941. I checked the serial number, I knew that for a fact. So I found this on the net and put it into a little booklet so I would know how to take care of my machine. Because I'm not a machinist, I don't know anything about machines. First one to admit it. My son then went on the net and found this one. Can you believe this? 2 different manuals for the same machine. They both pretty much tell you the same thing, but they're on the net. So if you have a machine and you do not have a manual, go online. The manuals are free and get one because you need it. You need to know how to take care of your machine, how to oil it, when you should service it, how to thread it. For years, I was threading my 260 slightly differently. And when I looked at my manual and checked how I was threading, I was surprised. I was missing one of the little holes it goes through. And all those little holes that you put the thread through, they're actually tensions. You need to thread the machine correctly if you want the machine to sew well. And now we'll talk about this machine. This is a Necchi. Okay, so why on earth did I buy that when I'm so in love with my little Featherweight? And this is the reason why. The answer is simple. I wanted a machine that also zigzagged, because zigzagging is a quick, easy way to overcast seam allowances. I do have an overlock, which home sewers call a serger, but I almost never use it. I kind of feel it looks a little bit cheap. I tend to encase with lining, and sometimes I'll even hand overcast. The French use a very tiny zigzag. You don't see much overcasting, what the home sewers call serging, in their high-end garments. So I tend to avoid that too. All right, this sewing machine comes with an adapter, of course, but the adapter can be taken off, and the low-level feet can be put on the machine and screwed back on. So you have an option with that. I've taken off the extension table, and as you can see, this has a free arm, I guess you'd call it. There are people that think they need this in order to sew their cuffs, but the truth of the matter is, if you just, for instance, if this is a cuff, you just sew around like that through it, let's see, in a circle like this, and that'll sew your cuffs together. You don't really need this arm on it. It's nice to have it, I suppose, but I never use it. I don't have any reason to. They do have arms like that in the industry, but these are special things. They're making like tight pants and stuff. It's weird stuff. And the machine just does that. Anyway, this machine is a top load. This pops open like this, and you can put the bobbin in through the top. You must thread it around this way. As I was telling in the video a little while ago, I had the bobbin in the wrong way, and I was screaming at the machine. I got to tell you that I was working on the machine, I think it was the night before last.
Yeah.
And I was screaming and yelling at the machine. My husband comes downstairs. He said, "Who are you talking to?" I said, "I'm talking to this sewing machine."
Yeah, right.
And then I said, "You know what? I better switch the bobbin. I'm going to flip the bobbin over. I have the bobbin in wrong."
Okay, you put the bobbin in.
Right.
Right.
And
There's the right side and the wrong side.
And the trouble was, I had the bobbin, so the thread went that way, and the machine didn't want to sew. Well, of course it didn't. All right, now it's in the right way, and it sews very, very well. So that's how it's loaded. Now, with this machine, after you put the bobbin in, you don't pull the thread up. It automatically comes up on its own. And more and more home sewing machines are picking up the certain aspects of industrial machines and vice versa. The industrial machines now are computerized, and they cut the thread themselves. They do all kinds of stuff, and making it easier for the seamstresses to sew faster. By the way, I don't sew fast, in case you want to know. You want to take your time, and you want to get it right. And every time you make a mistake, you need to stop. I have every stitch ripper known to man, all different kinds. I have one that even has a light in it, which I never use because it's sort of silly. But I have stitch rippers in the drawers here and there because I use them all the time. As they say, as ye sow, so shall ye rip, and it is the truth. And if you don't fix things as you go, you wind up with garments that are either look a mess, or you wind up having to go back after making 4 or 5 more, doing 4 or 5 more steps in the garment, and you've got to go back and fix it. So there's no point in that. This shirt that I'm wearing right now, as you see, it's been cut to match. It goes over a shirt that I just made that goes with another blouse. And if you put this together, you will see that it all matches right on down. Let's see if we can get this right. Yeah. The whole thing matches right on down the front. It's all been cut to match. And I made it several years ago. And I didn't put any buttons or buttonholes on it because I knew I was going to have a shell underneath because you could see right through the thing. And It looks brand new, and that's what happens when you make your own clothes. You take longer, you make them better, but you actually spend a lot less time sewing because what you make lasts. It's very important, of course, to also make sure you're in your best color palette, that you're choosing fabrics that go with your natural palette, and that you are cutting and sewing clothing that match your personal style. And your style may be very different than your best friend's. That's okay. You're you, she's her. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.